Hello, hello, and welcome to Revolution in the 21st Century, a roundup and review of our existence so far, 2024 to 2026. My name is Robin Boardman. I'm one of the directors of Rev21 and a co-founder of Extinction Rebellion. Been working with Roger Hallam for a long time and happy to show you what we've been working on the last 2 years. This is the team so far. It's a little collection of images of people involved, video editors, people behind the scenes. They don't have always the highest quality pictures, as you can see. Some of it pixelated, but that's just because these are ordinary folks helping out. And I just wanted to capture some of the joy of the team. It's been a very good couple of years in terms of building up a new voice and a new group. We now have collectively 100,000 followers between myself, Roger, and the Rev21 social ecosystem. We've built up a mailing list of around 5,000 people plus, and we've got lots of revolutionary members, people who are subscribing, donating to give a bit more, to be part of things, to receive books, to be really involved in the movement. And that's really incredible. Several hundred of those. We've released several of the notebooks that Roger was working on in prison, with more to come, a whole pipeline of books to come, 10 books or so. Very exciting, all the progress we've made in terms of publishing and starting the business kind of hard rain books, which we'll talk about later. And then also the Festival of Revolutions, introducing people to many new ideas and concepts through a kind of plurality of speakers and workshops, and getting people involved in a conference online through Zoom events, which gives people the chance to also use breakout rooms to be really involved in a new kind of online conference and festival, one that we hope can set a mark in terms of how we can still be together without flying, for instance, by being across many different countries, by still having breakout groups. And we've released hundreds of articles, mainly from Roger, on climate, current events. And so these are some of the top highlights of what we've been up to. And now I'm going to talk you through in more detail, bit by bit. So here are some of the big numbers. We've hosted 4 global festivals, which have had 1,000 participants in total. Incredible to see those grow and to go steady and to build a community around them, to then direct the people who are involved in those events and festivals towards action, where they can get involved in their local area, how they can be a part of things going forward. We've published 200 posts, articles, blog pieces, transcripts, podcasts, you name it. We're producing a lot of content on the climate emergency, civilizational collapse, and it's been brilliant to see that grow. In fact, you can see almost 700,000 YouTube views to date. That's on Roger's YouTube channel mainly, but also now on Rev21, which is hosting the recordings of the festivals, and 120,000 hours of people watching, which I still can't get my head around. And alongside that, upgrading from just, as Roger once said, writing Facebook posts into the void, until I started promoting him and making these published posts. Now turning those also into books. We produced the first book, which was called 50 Articles the Media Wouldn't Publish. Now we've released 3 books, prison notebooks mainly from Roger, and we've got 10 more manuscripts under work now, not just from Roger, but also from Kofi Klou, from the Pan-Africanist movement, looking at the Pan-Africanist approach to the climate emergency. We've got Paul Powersland interested in writing a book on the river guardians and defenders and peaceful civil resistance to shoddy councils. Lots of exciting things in the making there. With 500 copies sold, hundreds given out for free to activist groups, reviewers, allies of the movement, and 6 translations made so far. So you can see here that Roger's audience has almost doubled since 2023 when we started Rev21. Been giving him a lot of support and volunteering to help raise his voice often through Twitter and other social media platforms. Now you can see how it's doubled and grown, particularly first spike after his initial sending to prison for speaking out about the climate emergency, a kind of steady growth whilst he was in prison, and then again a big uptake when he was released, which is great to see. So this is how his writing has taken off from being, yes, as he says, these Facebook posts into the void, into 4,000 members on a non-profit website, blog site, with about 400 paid members, getting a regular income of £2,500 towards the movement. Roger, of course, takes his own livings for his to carry on, for rent, for family, which is about 1,600 a month, I think, and then everything we're earning on top of that goes into the movement and into getting more volunteers and people involved. Similarly, on Substack, we've seen a huge, much more rapid growth. Ghost is more of a steady site, which reflects kind of a general, kind of dripping interest in Roger, whereas Substack has a much more viral potential, so we're growing more on there recently. And here's a bit of a snapshot of what that looks like. These are people mainly from the States, from the UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and it's kind of a lot of audience overlap with the Chris Hedges report. Roger and Chris talk once a year or so. With another progressive Substack, so it's good to see that we're in a good ecosystem there. Our top articles have been capturing a lot of the news commentary that Roger's been writing, and then I've been editing it into more developed articles, art pieces, classical art, or postcards from Mr. Fish, the cartoonist who also works for Chris Hedges, is on cartoons. These have really blown up over the last year and have had, as you can see, about 10,000 views on these posts, and with many of them encouraging people to sign up and get involved, which is really exciting to see. And this is all building a lot more legitimacy for Roger's voice in a very difficult time for speaking out on the climate emergency. We managed to get a regular column in The Ecologist whilst he was in prison, and several pieces in the New Statesman afterwards, and many more magazine and podcast interviews, from climate podcasts to Swiss progressives or Dutch progressive newspapers and magazines. Roger's voice is really getting out there again, which is great for helping keep up the message of the revolution in the 21st century, non-violent democratic revolution. We've had a steady growth of videos, or stable state of posting videos quite regularly and keeping them available for people. Lots of tutorials, lots of in-depth talks from prison, podcasts. You can see here these are the most popular. When Trump won, Roger commented on that from prison. His talk when he was released, and initial points about climate science and the plan for revolution going forward, all key elements, have now been quite successful on YouTube. This is good to see. We've had 78 podcast episodes, largely again from prison, incredibly, recording down the phone line, with 100,000 plays across many platforms, which we're still trying to work out how to best get our podcasts out there, looking for some kind of podcast manager or help to work on creating these content. And despite the second podcast being stopped by the prison authorities, Spirit of the Revolution, still managing to get a decent audience from across the world. So shout out Amsterdam, Helsinki and Sydney for being the top listeners there. This is a little bit of a comms timeline. So initially Roger's audience was very heavily concentrated on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. His Instagram was very small, as a much younger base, for instance, that he wasn't really tapping into. Facebook was very personal, and he didn't have any kind of decentralized media, no Blue Sky, no Mastodon, no things that were going to resist kind of big tech takeovers. And he didn't really have any short videos, maybe one or two that someone else had made. In that year, we held our first conference, live streamed through YouTube, and started to get more content created, and from there diversified away from Twitter, setting up Facebook and Instagram to grow much more rapidly with professional accounts. getting Bsky and other decentralized medias as new meaningful channels with now 10,000 followers or so. YouTube, as I said, steady, and then the next two conventions in that year, raising around £5,000, £6,000 for the movement, which I was very proud of and put a lot of effort into. And with these kind of recordings, I sadly had a breakdown after our third convention with my chronic health problems. But to see what an appetite it created, and energy and continual force was really encouraging, and happy to be one part of it again as I recover. There's also now a new part-time global team working on the management of the social media with Kata from the degrowth movement from Portugal, with IO from the climate debt movement, and looking at the social media posts. How can we expand and add more diversity and variety, which has been really helping me to be more stable. And as I mentioned, yeah, newsletter growing, and the whole ecosystem in general growing through communications. One of which has been Hard Rain Books, a very exciting development of creating books from prison, getting a quick publisher, quick turnaround of Radical Press. Roger already had some experience producing books in the height of the Extinction Rebellion movement, but then kind of was censored, kind of outcast, was in prison. So this is a Radical Press to help get his voice out there. As you can see, we've got a few books in place. We hosted our first book launch at Bookhouse in Bristol. Shout out for hosting us and for capturing some of the great new work we've been working on, and also helping to build that community around books, using books in our kind of non-violent mobilization, our moment of whirlwind, as a way of getting people more involved, chatting, discussing how can they take action, not just as a thing to read and put back on the bookshelf, but read it, share it, pass it on, get recruited, scan the QR code at the back. This is all about mobilization and getting people involved. So there's many more of these to come. And as you can see, here are some of the statistics. We've now got about 1,300 books through Hard Rain Books in circulation, either digital or physically. We've raised about £4,500 from that, with, as you can see, about 700 physical copies. So this has been very exciting to see that growing, with many more to come. The next up are the How to Blow Up a Society, Roger's critique on Andreas's mom's How to Blow Up a Pipeline. More books coming out on assemblies and how those can be used to spark the revolution and climate action, to get people collectively buying into the policies they want to see in the world, picking their own candidates, picking their own manifestos. Very powerful. A new pamphlet just releasing with Roger and Ash Sarkar from Novara Media, trying to collaborate more with other media organizations. And finally, Design the Revolution, Roger's magnum opus from prison, of all he's learned on many areas of social movement organizing over the last decades. So if you do like what I'm talking about here, and this is all sounding like a great vibe, and the revolution's coming, and you're excited to see all the progress, please do join and be one of these revolutionary members and make a donation and be part of what we're building here, because you really can be. And I'll send you some books and we can talk about it and be part of these together. Here are some statistics on the Revolution festivals, the number of registrants, number of people who actually came in person, 173 speakers, which was, of course, as you can imagine, a lot of work to organize, to find the right timing, the schedulings, but delivering 90 sessions together, many panels, as you can tell, was fantastic, bringing together minds who are thinking about the climate emergency from across the world into one place, and mobilizing people towards action felt very enriching. A lot of those are from the UK, but also from Germany, the US, mainly other Western countries, and a small percentage from the global South, which is great with Zoom, that we can reach people all across the world. We've learned a lot from that, working on our speaker curation, the technical side of things, networking. How do we continue the funnel of action, from not just from hearing about some talks or panels, but to getting involved in your local area, directing people towards the A22 network, towards assembly movements, and just generally as a team of those bright faces you saw earlier, building the kind of skills and coordination to run these more consistently going forward. And then so far, building and creating a lot of collective energy around these topics and wanting to harness more of that online and put it towards a stronger revolutionary action and trend, and trying to convert the people who do attend into ongoing volunteers and involvement. So we've got some things to work on there, but it's really exciting to see them in place. Some of the next steps that we worked out at the recent gathering in the UK was to have more weekend trainings, kind of face to face, rather than just these online festivals, working with people like Resilient Uprising on that, who are doing great work and training youth and otherwise leadership trainings for social movements. We're looking at more podcasts and collaborations. Roger's appearances so far have been going well. I've also been invited in some more channels and trying to get ourselves organized to put some of these spokespeople out there and learn from how we can grow there. Also looking at mobilization research, what can we learn and build as guides, tutorials, tactics that help social movements who are currently in existence grow. And this has all been slow progressing. We're still working out what other forms some of the ideas that we've built the last year will take. For instance, the Sunday service, trying to build this kind of idea of a beloved community, which is a Martin Luther King phrase for a kind of more spiritual minded community. And the mini assemblies movement, getting people involved in small discussions locally at a street level, community level, to feel more of a kind of sense of democracy in their lives, and working with different projects in different areas. These are still many projects, many ideas under discussion, which leads me, with all those many projects, to a point which I've asked a lot about, and so I wanted to bring into this presentation of, what are all these groups we're working with, and how has Rev 21 come about into this format? And maybe this should have been the opening gambit to give you more of a sense of where Rev 21 has come from. So there was this article in The Economist, and it made me laugh when I saw it. It's got a grain of truth in it. The idea here is that they're calling it the Roger Hallam Extended Universe. Lots of protest groups that have he's been involved in, or been influential in. Really, he's just been very active, but these groups have been started by lots of other people and have lots of other people working on them. But Roger has certainly been a part and wanting to support them. So here's a bit of a timeline of how that's come about. So Roger, we were together with Gail Bradbrook and Stu Basden, who also now works with Rev 21, started Rising Up as a network against the toxic democracy, media institutions within British society. That's how I got involved, mainly in Bristol, connecting with the others who then later became the fellow co-founders of Extinction Rebellion with me. There we piloted a few campaigns like Vote No Heathrow, where Roger and I did a hunger strike for 14 days against the Heathrow airport expansion, which was a kind of precursor action and built the energy and community that then fed into the growth of and birth of Extinction Rebellion, which launched in 2018 with me reading out the Declaration of Rebellion in Parliament Square. And this has been a common route for what has come next, from what I can see at least. So from there have been some splinters, largely around the pandemic and working online, some difficulties in the climate movement generally. So we've got the Heathrow Pause movement, using drones to block airports, which generates a lot of attention, but also prison time for Roger. The Insulate Britain campaign, blockading highways to demand home insulation, winning their demand to get that into the home insulation into Labour's policies. Also then the Humanity Project, starting to build community assemblies, which Roger was originally part of, but now no longer. The Lifehouse community, preparing people for collapse of the climate and ecological system, and also another democracy project around assemblies, specifically in Hull, and focusing on what cooperatives can look like there. This mainly the Insulate Britain element that Roger was most involved with. This then forked into the Just Up Oil campaign, which had even greater name recognition and success in terms of getting that also as a part of government policy to stop the expansion of new oil in the UK, and spread globally into the A22 network with many from around 13 countries: Canada, France, Germany, New Zealand, many using similar tactics of non-violent resistance in a network, which has been brilliant to see, including one that we've worked with very closely, The Last Generation, particularly in Germany and Italy, which has had several 100,000 members, similar to those of Extinction Rebellion before it. And so, keeping on the edge of, at the forefront, trying to keep in touch with where are the mass movements in this moment, where are the people who are going to get on the streets and take action, and not just, sign petitions or come along to festivals and whatnot. We want to keep focusing on that. From there, Just Up Oil also fragmented and became different parts. This is Rigged in Scotland, for instance. Assemble in the UK. Youth Demand, a youth wing to Just Up Oil that also focus more on the twin sort of climate and Palestine genocides. And also Take Back Power, using a kind of iteration of Robin Hood style campaigns, taking from the corrupt tax dodging supermarkets and giving them out to ordinary people. They're much more active now, and reclaiming the flags of the UK and challenging the far right. And crucially, one of the biggest ones has been Defend Our Juries. After seeing how protesters were criminalized so heavily, like Roger, given the longest sentence for non-violent protest in British history, a group has formed around defending the existence of juries, which has been under threat in the UK, and also the actions, the court cases and whatnot around them, and also producing thousands of people in resistance, thousands of arrests for simply holding signs, continuing in the mass non-violent tradition. This has been very close to our work. And internationally, we also saw this Resilient Uprising, the team I mentioned earlier, training institute for young leadership, learning on what we've done so far, and also more splits of Last Generation into New Generation and Widerstands Collective, but also then the birth of Rev 21. That's where I wanted to get to on the timeline. So you can see there's a lot of groups that we've been in our ecosystem and that we've been working with or connecting with, and it gives you a bit of a sense of where that's come from. So now Rev 21 is supporting Pull the Plug, the first AI resistance movement. This is a big march outside Google, wanting to challenge the existential threats, capture the energy right now that's anti-AI, anti-big tech, and put it more into people power, human creativity. It's one of the main campaigns we've been helping to incubate. Also the 4 Billion Dead campaign, kind of new iteration of really declaring the climate emergency as bluntly as possible to try and raise awareness from a recent report of the risk of 4 billion dead, silent, peaceful marches because of the higher levels of repression in the UK, but also bringing in interesting speakers and events and lots of donations because people are realizing how desperately dire the situation is. Also locally, Roger has been working with the Shake It Up campaign, local assemblies of local people, to challenge traditional politics, use discussions and independent candidates. That's where Roger's been putting a lot of his energy recently, to kind of build that democratic revolution. The Sunday service I mentioned, wanting to build the spirit of revolution, more of that coming. And then so this has been a bit where all the big things we're up to, big groups, but I wanted to also mention some of our special moments as a group. So the proudest moment, I think, has been Io getting a certificate in short form video and organizing for campaigns. Io has been a great help in the social media team and getting that doubling of followers, as we mentioned earlier, getting Roger's message out there, Really well done. Very proud. We also had our huge viral moment of Roger saying fuck 5,000 times to respond to the fact that the nature's carbon sinks are failing. This had 36 million views on Twitter and has generally, been a trend of Roger occasionally, every couple of months having something that will get several million views because he's just bang on the public opinion or the money in terms of how screwed we are in climate and how that often then brings in new subscribers and members to the blog and to the movement. We've also had some pretty funny and silly moments. I wasn't there for this one because I was ill, sadly, but apparently someone accidentally naked came into the festival online, and you just have to adapt to these strange circumstances of online worlds and webcams. We made a blooper reel of Roger doing his little talks and events. It was very joyous. I recommend checking it out. And yeah, this is where we kind of come to then, some of our highlights, and where we really need help going forward is with a lot of the admin around book production, outreach, proofreading, editing, getting these existing books out into the world if that's any interest to you. With this massive growth of social media and followers, we also really would want more video editors, people who are willing to work together to create new content that helps build that audience and direct them towards action. And similarly, could also help maybe with some of the technical sides of videos and events online, and also looking to build more in-person events, maybe with a book tour, speaking tours as Roger's prison restrictions lift, house arrest restrictions lift, to get him out and touring more. So thank you so much for just taking this short time to hear about everything we've been up to. I really hope that it inspires you. It shows that social movements can still grow in this moment, this difficult moment in time, that we're working towards it relentlessly, and that you will get involved if not already. Subscribe to get interested, donate whatever you can, 5, 10, 50, 100, 1,000, 10,000, to help this movement grow. And you can see that we mean business, that this is a serious project for us. We're keeping the numbers, we're keeping the track, and we want to really make a mark going forward. So thank you so much for watching. I've been Robin. Take care.